Hello everyone. This lecture is based on the subject System Design and Analysis. It is open elective for third year BE student in MBM Engineering College Jodhpur. This subject has 4 units: System Fundamental Concepts, Procedure for Engineering a System, System Optimization and System Schedule. Out of which we have covered 3 units in previous lectures. And now in this lecture we will be covering the last unit, that is System Schedule. And once we complete this lecture, we'll be having idea about various time models and resource allocation methods required for a system. Now we'll start with the types of forecasting models. We need forecasting model to predict the demand in future. So if you are a manager in a company and in an organization and you need to predict, or you need to get an idea of what amount you will be having required by the customers, what demand customers will be having at the end of the year or at the end of the month, that you can easily predict using several techniques known as forecasting models. Forecasting models are further divided into qualitative methods and quantitative methods. Qualitative methods are basically judgmental methods, forecast generated subjectively by the forecaster and educated guesses. So there is no mathematics and no calculation in these methods. These are basically based on idea and guesses only. So these are known as qualitative methods. Second category comes as quantitative methods. These methods are based on mathematical modeling. So we have time series models. So the time series models assume information needed to generate a forecast is contained in a time series of data, and we assume that the future will follow the same pattern. So we have different patterns of time, means how what was the pattern of demand in previous year or previous 10 years, previous 5 years. Then we assume that the same pattern will follow in next 1 year or next 5 years. So according to the time pattern, time series, we estimate our demand in future. While the causal methods are also known as associative models, these are also quantitative methods. These methods explores cause and effect relationship and use leading indicator to predict the future. So they find what was the cause of any changes in the demand, and then they predict the future demand according to this. So these are known as causal models. So we have quantitative methods of forecasting, where we have time series models and causal methods. Now we'll see how time series model works. Forecaster looks for data pattern as data historic pattern plus random variation. So it is clear from this statement that we have some historic pattern, historic data, and we just assume some random variation in this. So forecaster can easily estimate the demand by adding some variation in the already available historical data. So you have some historical data, you just put some variation, you just assume, you some add some variation in this, and then you can easily get your future demand, and then you can predict the forecasting demand that would be required. So there are certain time series patterns. Level or horizontal pattern, number 1. Number 2 is trend pattern. Number 3, below you can find the seasonal pattern. Number 4, cyclic pattern. So there are several different patterns that can help us in deciding the future demand. So if it is a seasonal pattern, you can easily find that after certain period the demand goes high, and in particular period that demand goes low. So accordingly you can plan your activity in the company to fulfill the demands of customers. So you just take reference from these patterns to decide on your future demand required. Then there are certain equations useful for estimating the forecasting demand. So if you want to predict the future demand, you can use this formula, where F stands for the forecasting demand, while A stands for the actual demand. So the forecasted demand is always dependent on the actual demand. There is a relation between between the actual demand and the forecasted demand. So you use those relation between actual demand and forecasted demand, and using several these formulas you can easily calculate your forecasted demand for different applications. So these are the various formula used to find the forecasted demand based on the actual demand. Then you can measure the forecasting error also. This is the difference between the actual demand and the forecasted demand, so you can calculate the error for particular problem. Then how do you measure the forecasting accuracy? How do you find that your forecasting method is accurate enough? There are several measures that help you in deciding the efficiency and accuracy of your forecasting method. First one is the mean absolute deviation. It is the actual minus forecasted demand divided by the number of periods. So it measures the total error in a forecasting without regard to sign. Next comes the cumulative forecast error. It is the summation of actual minus forecasted demand. It measures the bias in the forecast. Next comes the mean square error, MSE. It is actual minus forecast square summation divided by n, and it is used to penalize the larger errors. And last one is the tracking signal. There is nothing but the CFE divided by MAD we have already calculated, and it measures if your model is working or not. So it gives you an idea about that. Now, what are the various objectives of scheduling? The objectives here is to maximize the sources, minimizing the waiting in process inventory, and minimizing of tardiness. Why this scheduling is important? Because if you have a number of machines in your setup, number of devices in your setup, and you need to process your job through various machines or setup. Now intelligently you need to decide what would be the route of that particular job to be processed. So suppose you have a number of jobs with you and you have number of machines in your plant. Now you need to decide the sequence of job, sequence of machines, so that you can maximize the utilization of resources, so that you can minimize the waiting in process inventory, and how you can minimize the lateness or tardiness. These are the various objectives of you if you properly plan your production activity. Now there are certain priority rules to select order of jobs waiting for processing. So as I said earlier, if you have a number of jobs available with you which are to be processed, you need to process those jobs to complete. But you have a good number of jobs with you. Now how you decide which jobs goes first for processing? So there are certain rules. Random, pick any job in the queue with equal probability. Then the second rule is first come first serve. That means jobs are processed in the order in which they arrive. So as soon as a job comes for processing, you just move forward that job for the processing. You did not wait for any other job. Then there is shortest processing time. The job with the shortest processing time requires goes first, while in case of earliest due date, the job with the earliest due date goes first. Similarly, for least work remaining, work to be scheduled according to the processing time remaining. So the job with the minimum work remaining should go first. So these are the various techniques to process your jobs. Next is fewest operation remaining. Jobs based on the number of successive operations remaining until the job is considered complete. And last one is the next queue that selects the job for processing that is going to the smallest queue, measured either in hours or jobs. So you choose a job and see if that queue is smallest. So these are the various rules by which you can select the jobs, which job should go first for the processing. Then you need to find the critical path in any network analysis. So if you have a variety of stations, machine stations, and variety of jobs, now you need to find the critical path that will give you maximum benefit and minimum travel to complete your project. So it includes activity with tail and I and j. It includes the completion time of the activity, that is dij. You need to consider the earliest starting time and earliest finishing time. You need to consider latest starting time and latest finishing time of each event. So this is how we calculate the times for each and every event, and then we decide what would be the critical path for a particular project. Now the procedure to find the critical path of any project. Critical path is required to find the optimum path that cost you minimum but gives you result within the given time frame with maximum benefit. Now what is the procedure to find this with the available parameter we had discussed in previous slide? That you first determine the earliest time for each activity, then you do backward pass computation for latest allowable time, and then you determine the slack time. I will explain this with an example in this lecture. We'll see how we calculate the earliest time, how we calculate the latest time, how we calculate the slack or float to decide which one is our critical path. So we'll see all this through an example. So critical event is the event with zero slack time. Critical activity as activity with zero float time, while the critical path is the sequence of critical activity in a network is called critical path. We will see all this in an example in this lecture. So we have to keep all this in our mind in while deciding on the critical path of any project. So let us see how you find the critical path for a particular project. So as shown on the screen right now, we have different nodes, node 1 to 10. Now we need to find a critical path that will cost you less and that will finish in the within given time frame. So how you decide? You calculate as I discussed earlier, you calculate earliest start time, you calculate latest start time, then you calculate the difference between those two timings to decide on the float, and then according to those parameter you decide which one is the critical path. So question here is to determine the earliest start time and latest start time in respect of all node points and identify the critical path for the so this is the problem we are having. We have with us the timings, different timings for each. Suppose if you are moving from node 1 to node 2, the time required is 10 minutes. If similarly if you are moving from node 1 to node 4, the time requires is 9 minutes. So there are different time values are here in this problem, and we need to find the critical path for this problem. Now we can calculate the earliest start time and latest start time for each node. Now how we calculate this? Let us start with the first node. For first node, the earliest start time and latest start time both are 0. Now if we move to node 2, node 3 and node 4 from node 1, so you can see that if we move from node 1 to node 2, it travels around 10 minutes. So earliest start time for node 2 would be 10. For node 3, because it requires 8 minutes for reaching from node 1 to node 3, so earliest start time for node 3 is 8. Similarly for node 4 we require to travel around 9 minutes from node 1 to node 4, so earliest start time is 9. So similarly in this manner we calculate starting time for each node, and you can see that starting time for node 10 comes as 37. Now to calculate the latest start time, we move from node 10. So if you are calculating the earliest starting time, you start with the node 1, but if you want to calculate the latest starting time, you start with the node 10 and move backward. So here for the last node, node 10, the earliest start time and latest start time should be same. So here in this case it is you can see that L10 is 37, that is latest starting time for node 10. Now you move backward from node 10. So as you can see from diagram, if you move back from node 10 to node 9, it requires 15 minutes. So the latest start time is 37 minus 15, that is 22 for node 9. Similarly if you move backward from node 10 to node 8, so if you move from node 10 to node 8, it requires 13 minutes. So you the total latest start time for 8 would be 37 minus 13, so it is 24. So similarly in same manner we calculate latest starting time for every node by subtracting the time limit value of the total time required from the latest starting time. So this is how we calculate the earliest start time and latest start time for every node. So please be careful in calculating. You need to take care that for calculating earliest start time you move forward from node 1, and for calculating the latest start time you move backward from the node 10. So similarly we get the earliest start time and latest start time for all nodes here. Now we put all these data in a table where we calculate the various times for each activity. Suppose for activity 1 2, that is the first activity, the time required from node 1 to node 2 is 10, that is the activity time. Earliest time we have calculated, latest time we have calculated, and there is no difference between earliest time and latest time, that's why the float time is 0. Now come to activity, second activity, that is 1 3, and the activity time is 8 minutes. We calculated the earliest starting time and latest starting time, but there is a difference between earliest start time and latest start time, so the difference here is known as the float time, that is 1. So in the same manner we can calculate the float time for each and every activity. So here you can see that for few activities we have 0 float time, for activity 1 2, for activity 2 5, and for 5 7, for 5 8, for 7 10 and 8 10. So these are the activity with 0 float time. So these are known as critical activities, as we discussed earlier. So we put those critical nodes as 1 2 2 5 5 7 5 8 7 10 and 8 10. So these are the activities you already saw in the table that they have 0 float time. So we have these critical node. Now using this critical node we can get the critical path like this: 1 2 5 8 10 and 1 2 5 7 10. So these are the two critical paths that will give you the least time and cost to complete your project, and you calculate those path using the critical activity. Those activities are related to the 0 float time, as we saw in our calculation and in table for this example. So this is how you get the critical path for a particular network using critical path method. Now again, the resource allocation and leveling is important, because there are two types of resource problems: resource smoothing and resource leveling. We'll see what is the difference between resource smoothing and resource leveling. Resource smoothing is when there may be a ceiling on the availability of resources in a period. Suppose you have some limitation on the funds utilization. Suppose you have 10 crores of funds with you and you need to utilize this, and if you don't utilize that, you will be penalized with some amount on that. So you efficiently and in a proper manner you need to utilize this fund. So this kind of problems comes into the category of resource smoothing. And the second problem is the resource labeling, because you can see that a resource may be required to be used in a uniform manner. Suppose in the labor requirement, suppose in a present day labor situation, one cannot have 100 laborers yesterday, 30 today and 80 tomorrow, and that means you may be have a requirement of 100 labor one day, and on second day you may require 30 labor, and on third day you may require 80 labors. So this kind of situation will trouble you, so you need to find a way to keep your labor requirement uniform. So suppose if you make some changes in your system, and if you require 50 labors every day, that will solve your problem, and this kind of problems comes into the category of resource labeling. So we discussed about various time models and resource allocation techniques in this lecture. Thank you.